In a hospital, everything beeps until the silence starts telling the truth. Monitors don't care who you married. They don't respect titles, reputations, or wedding rings. They just count heart rate, oxygen, pressure, steady numbers that keep time better than any clock. That Sunday night, the ICU was lit in that hard, colorless way hospitals have after midnight, when the world outside is asleep and the building feels like a ship floating alone. My shoes squeaked every third step, a small sound in a corridor full of larger ones, vents breathing, machines humming, a patient whispering someone's name in his sleep. I was charting at the nurses' station when the executive elevator chimed, not the regular elevator that families used, the one at the end of the hall with the keycard reader reserved for board members and the CEO, the one my husband used when he wanted the hospital to feel like his kingdom. Chime. A pause. Then the doors parted. Dr. Marcus Lawson stepped out like he owned the air. No white coat on his back. He carried it folded over his forearm, neat as a flag. Tie loosened, not undone. Hair still perfect. Marcus could walk past a crisis and keep his suit unwrinkled. But something else walked with him. A scent that didn't belong in my home or in an ICU. Expensive perfume. Sweet at first, sharp at the edges. Not soap, not sanitizer, not the boring cologne he'd worn since residency. Perfume has a way of skipping your logic and going straight for your stomach. My throat tightened before my brain could offer polite explanations. Marcus saw me and paused, like he'd forgotten the ICU had staff, like he'd forgotten I existed in this place. Then his face arranged itself into the smile he used for donors and cameras. "Nikki," he said softly, like we were meeting for coffee instead of crossing paths in a hallway that smelled like bleach and night. "Marcus." I kept my voice even, the way nurses do when we're trying not to startle anyone. "Didn't know you were still here." "Long day," he said. "Board calls. Media stuff." Media stuff. Those two words had become a curtain in our house. The hospital's image, the hospital's message, the hospital's story. Marcus loved stories because stories shine under studio lights, and facts don't. He glanced toward the ICU doors, like people glance at a casket when they don't know what to say. "You okay?" he asked. In 17 years of marriage, he'd never asked me that during my shift, not once. He'd asked if I'd seen his cufflinks, if I'd remembered the gala date, but not that. "I'm working," I said. He nodded and started walking, not toward the main exit, but toward administration. Toward the communications suite 2 floors down, where crisis messaging lived and truth got managed. He didn't touch my shoulder, didn't say goodnight, just moved forward, coat folded like a secret. I watched him go, and the quiet behind the beeping monitors felt heavier. I told myself it was nothing. A donor's hug. A perfume sample. 100 innocent explanations that all sounded thin the moment I said them in my head. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Still here, don't wait up." Like I was a girlfriend on a couch, not his wife. Like my waiting had ever mattered. I put the phone face down and forced my lungs into the slow rhythm I taught new nurses when panic starts to rise. In, hold, out. You learn to swallow fear so other people can borrow your steadiness. You learn to stand in rooms where somebody's world ends and still refill the supply cart after. I could handle blood. I could handle grief. I could handle the ugly truth of bodies breaking. What I didn't know how to handle was my husband walking through my workplace like I was part of the furniture. Near 2 a.m., the ICU settled into that rare, fragile quiet. I did one last round, checked drips, checked vents, checked faces. Then I returned to the station and noticed something near the executive elevator. A manila envelope lay half-tucked against the wall, clean and crisp, not trash, not lunch. A courier envelope, the kind communications used when they didn't want to email. I should have left it. I knew boundaries. I knew policy. I knew how quickly a nurse can become the headline instead of the truth. But I also knew what it meant to be edited out of your own life, piece by piece, until you're staring at your marriage like it belongs to strangers. So I picked it up. heavier than paper should be, a folder inside. I opened it the way you open lab results, steady, quiet, already bracing for whatever comes next. The first page read, Talking Points, Restructure. Below that, if asked about staff changes, emphasize operational efficiency and patient-centered excellence. Corporate Prayer. I flipped the page, a list of names, nursing leadership, department heads, supervisors, and there, in plain black print, was mine. Monique Nikki Lawson. Ryan. Transition plan. My mouth went dry. Transition plan is what administrators say when they want you gone without admitting they're cutting you loose. Transition plan is business language for, we're removing you. I scanned for context, for some explanation that could soften the hit. Then I saw another line beneath the list. Spouse considerations. Avoid conflict narrative. Maintain stable CEO image. Use third-party support if needed. Spouse considerations. As if my marriage was a risk assessment. As if I was a liability to be managed. The beeping monitors behind me kept counting like nothing had happened, and that was the cruelest part. The world didn't stop for betrayal. It just kept time. The elevator chimed again. I snapped the folder shut and slid it back into the envelope. Instinct took over. Nurses are invisible when we need to be. I tucked the envelope under my clipboard and moved like I had a reason to be anywhere else. In the supply alcove, under fluorescent light that made everyone look tired, my stomach did that slow, sinking roll you get when you miss a step in the dark. Marcus wasn't just pulling away at home. He was planning to remove me from the hospital. Quietly, professionally, with a script. And if he was scripting my exit, he was scripting everything. By dawn, I'd finished my shift with a face so neutral it hurt. I handed off reports, smiled at families, washed my hands until my skin felt raw. I drove home through gray streets and wet pavement, the city still holding its breath. Marcus wasn't home. The house was too quiet, too clean. He liked quiet when he wasn't performing. He liked the world to make no demands when the cameras were off. I didn't sleep much. I lay in the dark and listened to the refrigerator hum and the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking once, then settling. I kept smelling that perfume in my mind, like it had soaked into my nerves. He came in the next afternoon, keys jingling, voice low on a call. I know, he murmured. We'll keep it clean, no drama. No drama. He ended the call and walked into the bedroom. When he saw me sitting up, he paused like he was surprised to find me still living in my own life. Nikki, he said, warm as stage lighting. You're home. I got off shift, I replied. How was your night? Busy, he said. Crisis meeting. Media stuff? I asked, and watched a flicker cross his eyes. Tiny, fast, real. He sat on the edge of the bed and reached for my hand like he was going to play husband. Wedding ring catching light. Palm warm. Touch practiced. There are some changes coming, he said, voice lowered. At the hospital. I'll handle it. Handle it. Like I wasn't part of it. I watched his face. Changes involving me? His jaw tightened. Why would you think that? Because I found the folder, I wanted to say. Because my name was printed like a problem. Because you smell like someone else's choices. Instead, I said, because you've been acting like I'm an inconvenience. His thumb stroked my knuckles, gentle enough to look loving to anyone watching. Nikki, don't start. Not now. There's always a not now in marriages where one person has already left. I inhaled, and that perfume floated up again, faint but undeniable. I held his gaze. Marcus, are you having an affair? The question hung between us like a flat line. For a heartbeat, I saw panic, raw and human. Then it disappeared beneath Dr. Marcus Lawson, CEO, community leader, stable image. He gave a soft laugh. Where is this coming from? I didn't answer. He leaned closer, voice soothing, like he was talking down a patient. You're exhausted. You're working too much. You're imagining problems because you're stressed. There it was, the gentle diagnosis, the calm dismissal, the way he could turn my instincts into symptoms. I stared at him and felt something inside me cool into clarity. Okay, I said quietly. He blinked, thrown off. Okay? Okay, I repeated. I'm going to rest. Relief loosened his shoulders. He kissed my forehead. It felt like paperwork. Then he left the room already moving on, already rewriting the story where I was the unstable one. I waited until I heard his footsteps fade down the hallway. Then I sat up, reached into my nightstand, and pulled out the manila envelope. My name stared back at me. Transition plan. A cheating husband doesn't just break your heart. A husband cheated with an assistant and then tries to erase you from your livelihood is doing something colder, something strategic, something that isn't just betrayal. It's financial fraud in marriage wearing a nice suit. And the hospital? The hospital was his stage. If he wanted to humiliate me quietly, if he wanted to make me look difficult while he kept a stable image for the board, then I needed more than feelings. I needed evidence. So I texted the only person I trusted completely. Shay, are you awake? Her reply came back instantly. Always. Talk to me. I stared at the envelope, then at the closed bedroom door. I typed, I think my husband is cheating. And I think he's planning to push me out at work. A beat. Then, don't say another word to him. Save everything. I'm coming over. I exhaled slowly, the way you do before you step into a room where someone might code. Calm face, clear mind, steady hands. Because I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give him a single emotional quote he could feed to PR. I was going to find the trail. And somewhere deep in my gut, beneath the hurt and humiliation, I already knew the truth would be uglier than perfume and lies. If you're still with me, don't go anywhere. If you're listening right now, give this a like and comment what time it is and where you're listening from. Because the next thing I found wasn't a lipstick stain or a love note. It was a line item in the hospital's billing system that shouldn't exist, and it led straight to him. And it had teeth, too. Shay arrived with her hair wrapped in a scarf and her eyes already sharp, like she'd been waiting for someone to finally say the ugly thing out loud. She didn't knock. She used the spare key I'd given her years ago, back when Marcus still smiled at my friends and called them family. The lock clicked, and for a second, I imagined Marcus hearing it, imagining his control being tested. The thought warmed me in a way I didn't like. Shay set a paper bag on the counter. The smell of greasy breakfast drifted out. Hash browns, eggs, something fried that promised comfort with no questions. Eat, she said. Not a suggestion. I tried to laugh. You came fast. I don't play with men who play with you, she said, then nodded at the manila envelope on my table. That what I think it is? I slid it to her. She read in silence, flipping pages with the calm of a woman who'd spent years translating corporate language into human pain. When she reached my name, Monique Nikki Lawson, RN, transition plan, her mouth tightened. They're trying to move you out without a lawsuit, she murmured. My husband is the CEO, I said. The word husband felt like a costume. He's supposed to protect me. Shay looked up, eyes flat. Girl, he's protecting himself. I told her about the perfume, the elevator, the way Marcus had walked past me like I was staff he didn't recognize. I told her I'd asked him if he was having an affair, and he'd diagnosed me instead. Tired, stressed, imagining things. Shay's jaw set. That's not a marriage. That's a PR campaign. I stared at the envelope, and the quiet kitchen pulled me backward through years I usually kept filed away like old charts. Marcus and I met in a supply closet 17 years ago. I was a charge nurse on nights, young but already tired in the bone. Marcus was a resident, brilliant and hungry, still wearing his arrogance like a new coat. He bumped into me while I reached for IV tubing. Our hands brushed, and he jolted like he'd touched something hot. Sorry, he said, but his eyes assessed me like a case study. I should have rolled my eyes. Instead, I watched him fumble with gloves like he'd never done anything practical, and something in me softened. Nurses see the human under the uniform, even when the uniform is stitched to ego. He started showing up on my unit with questions he could have asked anyone, always with that half smile that made him look humble to people who didn't know him yet. He liked how steady I was. I liked how alive he sounded when he talked about the future. We married 4 years later. Two black professionals building a life inside a system that didn't hand us anything. We bought a modest house, planted a tree in the backyard, told ourselves we were building something solid. For a while, we were. Then Marcus got noticed. A local news spot, a donor luncheon, a photo with a councilman. Marcus learned fast that medicine wasn't only healing, it was optics. He started wearing suits more than scrubs. He started speaking in slogans. Patient-centered excellence, he'd say at dinner, like it was scripture. Operational efficiency, like it was prayer. When the previous CEO retired, the board wanted someone young, charismatic, scandal-free. Marcus fit like a tailored suit. The day he got the job, he lifted me off the floor in our kitchen and said, "We did it. We." Like I hadn't been the one holding the home together while he stayed late for meetings. Like I hadn't opened doors for him through my community, my church, my aunties who loved him because I told them to. Still, I believed in our we. I believed the man who kissed my forehead at 3 a.m. after a trauma case was still inside the man shaking hands with donors. The first shift happened quietly. Marcus hired a communications team. "We need to control the narrative," he said. That's when Brie Gaines walked into our world. She was younger than me by at least a decade, polished like she'd been dipped in confidence and pulled out shiny. Tight curls, bright smile, nails always perfect. She called Marcus Dr. Lawson in public, and Marcus when she thought no one could hear. I met her at a fundraiser. She floated up to him with a tablet and a whisper, then turned to me. "And you must be Nikki," she said, voice sugary. "I've heard so much." I waited for Marcus to say something warm, something that made my place clear. He just smiled. "Bree runs our media strategy. She's brilliant." Brilliant. Not professional. Not harmless. After that, she was everywhere. At board meetings, at staff town halls, at events where people clapped on cue. She adjusted his tie, smoothed his lapel, fixed him like he was a product that needed better packaging. And slowly, the pictures changed. At first, we were a power couple story in the newsletter. Marcus in his suit, me in my scrubs. Then my face disappeared from the homepage. Then the nursing department's wins only made the newsletter if Marcus could stand in the photo. One day I walked past a framed portrait in the main lobby. Marcus smiling alone beneath a caption that read, "Our Leadership." I stared at it, feeling erased while still breathing. When I asked him about it, he sighed like I'd asked him to fix a leaky faucet. "It's just branding," he said. "Donors like a clean message." "So I'm messy?" I asked. He gave me that mild impatience. "Don't do that, Nikki." The hospital itself changed with him. New glass walls, new security doors, new badges that tracked where you went and how long you stayed. Marcus called it accountability. I called it surveillance with better branding. Bree loved those changes. She'd stand near the lobby screens that played looping videos of Marcus shaking hands and smiling at babies, and she'd talk about messaging like it was medicine. During a staff town hall, she took my seat in the front row, my usual spot as nursing leadership, and slid into it without even looking at me. When I hesitated, Marcus glanced over and gave me a quick, dismissive smile. "Just grab any chair," he mouthed. Any chair, anywhere. Not beside him. After the meeting, Bree caught up to me in the hallway, heels clicking on tile like a metronome. "You're so lucky," she said. "Most CEOs don't have spouses who understand how hard the job is." It sounded sweet, but her eyes stayed on my badge, on my title, like she was reading it for weaknesses. Before I could answer, Marcus appeared behind her and placed a hand lightly at the small of her back to steer her through the crowd. A quick touch. The kind men think no one notices. I noticed. That same week, I got an email from HR. Performance check-in. Mandatory. Unscheduled. The language was soft, but the timing was sharp. I sat in a conference room while an administrator I barely knew asked if I was feeling supported and whether I'd considered reducing my hours for wellness. It was framed like care. It felt like a trap. When I told Marcus, he didn't look surprised. He just said, "They're under pressure. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally." My marriage was turning into instructions on how to swallow myself. At night, I started hearing the hospital the way I hear a patient right before they crash. Not just alarms, but the wrong quiet. Doors closing too softly. Conversations stopping when I walked up. Bree's laugh behind a half-shut office door. Then Marcus's low voice, too intimate for a workplace. And my own footsteps sounded guilty, even barefoot. Around then, he started coming home later. Board dinner. Media crisis. A donor needs me. He'd walk in smelling like hotel soap and city air, kiss my cheek, and head straight for the shower. Sometimes he fell asleep with his phone pressed to his chest, screen down. If it buzzed, his hand moved before his brain did. Flip, check, hide. I told myself it was stress. I told myself a cheating husband was something that happened to other women. Women who didn't know their husband's passwords. Women who didn't share a mortgage and a history. Shay had warned me anyway. "He's acting different," she'd say. I defended him. I defended us. Because admitting your husband cheated feels like admitting you misread your own reality. That's why the envelope mattered. It wasn't perfume or vibes. It was paper, planning. A husband cheated with his assistant and drafted a script to make me disappear quietly. Shay slid the pages back into the envelope with care, like she was handling evidence. "We need a plan," she said. "What kind of plan?" "The kind where you don't lose your job, your house, and your sanity because a man wants to play king." She pulled out her phone. "First, we document. Second, we protect your money. Third, we find out what she is to him, officially." "I don't have proof," I said. "You have instincts," Shay replied. "And now you have a transition plan with your name on it. That's the start." She paused, voice lower. "Men like Marcus don't cheat casually. They cheat strategically. If he's moving you out, he's making room. For someone. Or for himself." The words landed like ice. I looked down to the hallway, toward the bedroom, toward the space where he'd kissed my forehead like it meant nothing. I imagined him in his office, leaning close to Bree, deciding what story to tell the board about me. Exhausted. Emotional. Unstable. A problem. I stood up, and my chair scraped the tile. The sound was loud in the quiet. "What do I do first?" I asked. Shay's eyes sharpened. "First, you stop trying to be the good wife. Good wives get buried under good men's lies. You start being the smart woman you were before you loved him." She tapped the envelope. "Tonight, you bring me every financial statement you can find. Bank logins, credit cards, mortgage papers, anything with numbers." "Why?" "Because financial fraud in marriage always travels with an affair," she said. "Always." A chill ran up my arms. Not fear, recognition. Hospitals teach patterns. Symptoms cluster. Causes hide until you ask the right questions. Somewhere in this, Marcus had made a mistake. He'd left a paper trail in my hospital. He'd underestimated the woman who'd spent 2 decades watching monitors, trained to notice small changes before the flaky become disasters. Shay shoved the paper bag toward me again. "Eat," she repeated. "Then we work." I took a bite of eggs that tasted like salt and smoke, and I felt the first hard click of something shifting inside me. Outside, the day moved on like nothing happened. Cars passed, neighbors watered lawns, the world kept its ordinary mask. But in my kitchen, I held an envelope that proved my husband's betrayal wasn't only personal, it was professional, calculated, cold. And I wasn't going to let him write my ending. Because if Marcus wanted to control the narrative, I was about to learn the language he feared most. The language of receipts. At first, I thought the hardest part would be not looking at him. Not texting, not asking, not begging for the version of Marcus I used to know to come back and explain himself. Not standing in the kitchen with that manila envelope in my hand and screaming until my throat turned raw. Shay said the same thing 3 times, like a nurse giving a patient discharge instructions they won't follow unless the words get carved into their skull. "Quiet, calm, documented," she told me. You don't win with noise. You win with proof. So I learned to move through my own house like a ghost that still pays the bills. That night, while Marcus showered upstairs, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and a legal pad. The overhead light cast a white, hard circle that made everything outside it feel like darkness. Shay sat across from me, sleeves pushed up, scrolling on her phone like she was searching for someone's weak spot in public records. I pulled up our joint bank accounts. The password still worked. That alone felt like a warning. He hadn't expected me to look. There were the usual charges, utilities, groceries, the mortgage, but threaded through them were small, quiet transactions that didn't belong. Transfers in even numbers, like someone trying to look organized. Payments to a company I didn't recognize. Gaines Media Consulting. My fingers went cold on the keyboard. "Shay," I whispered. She leaned in. Her eyes narrowed. "That's her." "How do you know?" "I don't," she said. "But I know a hustle when I see one. Check the address." I clicked. The business profile showed a P.O. box and a phone number with no website. No reputation, no history, just a shell with a clean name. My stomach did that slow, sinking roll you get when you miss a step in the dark. "How long?" I asked. Shay didn't answer. She didn't need to. The transactions went back 11 months, almost a year. A full cycle of holidays, anniversaries, and late-night board dinners. A year of me washing his shirts and cooking his food and defending his long hours. A year of my husband cheating and paying for it out of our life. "Screenshot everything," Shay said. "Download statements, print them, save them in 3 places." I did, hands steady, jaw tight. Each click felt like pulling a thread from a sweater that had been keeping me warm. The sweater didn't just unravel, it collapsed. Upstairs, the shower shut off. Water stopped. A door opened. A drawer closed. The house shifted. Shay's voice dropped. "Hide it. Now." I shoved the papers into a folder, slid my laptop closed, and swapped it for a cookbook on the table, like I'd been planning meals. I turned my face into something neutral just as Marcus walked in. He looked freshly polished. Hair damp, shirt crisp, expression relaxed like he'd washed off his sins with hot water. "You two are up late," he said, smiling at Shay. "Girls' night," Shay replied, sweet. "You know how we do." Marcus laughed softly. "Keep it down, though. Big day tomorrow." "What's tomorrow?" I asked. He glanced at me. Just a flicker, then shrugged. "Town hall? Staff updates. Board wants transparency." Transparency. The word tasted bitter. "Sounds important," I said. "It is," he replied. "Get some rest, Nikki." He kissed my forehead again. That same paperwork kiss. Then he walked out like he'd never once felt his heart race for anyone but himself. When his footsteps faded, Shay exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. "He's comfortable," she whispered. "That's dangerous. Comfortable men get sloppy." I stared at the doorway he'd disappeared through. "He's already sloppy." "Not enough," Shay said. "Not yet." The next morning, I went to the hospital early, not because I wanted to, but because the building was the only place where my face knew how to behave. In the ICU, you can't fall apart. People are tethered to machines. If you tremble, the room trembles. I walked in with my hair pulled back tight and my badge straight. Nurses waved, techs nodded. Someone handed me coffee without asking. My body moved on autopilot while my mind stayed in the dark, replaying the P.O. box and the transfers and the scent of perfume. At 9 o'clock, the town hall began in the main auditorium. Staff filled the seats, murmuring. On stage, a podium sat beneath a screen that already displayed the hospital logo in clean blue letters. Bree stood near the side, holding a tablet like a weapon. When Marcus walked out, the room quieted the way it always did for him. He wore a suit that made him look like stability, like leadership, like the kind of man donors trust with their money. He smiled, hands open. "Good morning, family." Family. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. He talked about expansion, about innovation, about patient-centered excellence. His words were smooth, practiced, and empty, like a hallway at 3 a.m., with no visitors left to witness what happens behind the doors. Then he shifted. As part of our restructuring, we'll be making adjustments in leadership roles, he said. These changes are designed to support our mission and ensure the best outcomes for our community. Bree's eyes flicked toward the audience, scanning like a hawk. Marcus continued. We'll be providing support and transition resources for those affected. Support, transition. The envelope's language, spoken out loud. A hot pulse beat behind my eyes, but I kept my face still. I watched the crowd's reactions, confusion, curiosity, fear. People always pretend layoffs are about efficiency, but everyone hears the same thing. Someone is about to lose their place. Marcus's gaze swept across the room and landed on me. He held it for half a second too long. Then he smiled, and the smile didn't reach his eyes. After the town hall, Bree approached me in the corridor outside the auditorium. She walked with that delicate, deliberate confidence of someone who believes she's untouchable. Nikki? She said brightly. Do you have a minute? Dr. Lawson asked me to schedule some follow-ups with nursing leadership. My throat tightened at the way she said his title like it was intimate. Email me, I replied. She laughed softly. Of course, I just wanted to check on you. It's a lot of change. She sounded like concern, but her eyes were hungry, waiting for me to crack, waiting for tears she could frame as instability. I'm fine, I said. Bree's smile sharpened. Good. That's good. Her hand brushed my elbow as she moved past. The touch was light, almost nothing. But it carried a message. I'm here, I'm close. I can touch what's yours. I stood still until she disappeared into a cluster of administrators. Then I turned and walked straight to the billing department. It wasn't a place most people noticed. No flowers, no applause, just beige walls and fluorescent lights and rows of desks where people stared into spreadsheets like they were trying to drown their souls in numbers. Lena Price sat at the far end, hunched over a monitor, her glasses low on her nose. Lena had been here longer than Marcus had been a resident. She knew every code, every loophole, every trick administrators used to make money look clean. She also knew me. Nurses and billing people share the same truth. The hospital runs on what you don't say out loud. I leaned on the edge of her desk. Lena, you got a second? She looked up, eyes tired but alert. For you, always. I lowered my voice. I need to ask you something off the record. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. That's a dangerous sentence. I know, I said, but I think someone is using hospital funds in ways they shouldn't. Lena's face went still. I didn't say Marcus's name. I didn't say Breeze. I let the air carry the implication. Lena glanced around the room, then tilted her head toward the break room door. Walk with me. We stepped into the break room, empty except for a microwave that smelled like old soup. Lena leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You didn't hear this from me, she said. I won't repeat it, I promised. She studied my face. You look like you've been up for days. I have. Lena exhaled. Okay, what do you need? I told her about Gaines Media Consulting, the transfers, the P.O. box. Her lips pressed together. That name, I've seen it. My heart thudded. In expense reports, she continued. Consulting fees, media training, reputation management, stuff like that. It's been approved at the top. At the top, I repeated. Lena nodded once. CEO-level approvals, no questions asked. My hands curled into fists. Is it legitimate? Lena's eyes flicked to the ceiling as if the building itself could hear. Let's just say it's unusual. The amounts don't match the deliverables, and the timing, it always hits right after big donor events. Like a cut, I whispered. Lena didn't correct me. I swallowed. Can you pull records? Her gaze sharpened. You know what you're asking. I do. Why? She asked softly. Because my husband cheated. Because he's trying to erase me. Because I can't breathe in my own bed. Because I'm done being quiet. But out loud, I said, because if this is fraud, it's bigger than me. Lena held my stare, then nodded once. Come back after your shift. Tonight. I'll show you what I can without putting my name on it. Relief and fear hit me at the same time. I nodded. Thank you. As I walked out, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Lunch today? We should talk. Calmly. Calmly. The word always came right before he tried to rewrite my reality. I stared at the message, then turned my phone face down and kept walking. I didn't have time for his calm. I had a trail to follow. That afternoon, I made rounds with a professional face while my mind counted evidence. Every beep from a monitor felt like a metronome ticking towards something inevitable. At 6:30 p.m., my shift ended. I stayed anyway, telling my team I had paperwork. When the unit settled, I slipped down to billing. Lena met me at the back door like we were sneaking contraband. She led me to her desk, where the lights above her monitor were dimmer than the rest of the room. She opened a folder on her computer. I can't print this, she whispered. But I can show you. My eyes scanned the screen. Payments to Gaines Media Consulting. Yes, but also payments to something else. A company called Larkspur Strategies. Another shell. Another P.O. box. And tied to both of them were internal codes, special project allocations. Look at the departments they're charged to, Lena said. I did. Community outreach. Patient assistance. Staff wellness. Funds meant for people who couldn't afford care. Funds meant for nurses who needed counseling after trauma cases. Marcus was siphoning money from the sick and the strained and funneling it into media. My stomach turned. How much? Lena clicked a summary. Over the last year? Around $250,000. The room tilted. $250,000 in quiet theft. Why hasn't anyone flagged it? I whispered. Because the approvals override flags, Lena said, and because people are afraid. The last analyst who questioned a CEO expense got reassigned to night audit in a basement office with no windows. A cold anger rose in me. Sharp, clean. What about Bree? I asked. Lena hesitated, then clicked another tab. A list of reimbursements, travel, meals, hotel stays. A name attached. Brielle Gaines. She'd been reimbursed for client entertainment, for strategic meetings, for consulting coordination. Marcus wasn't only paying her, he was laundering her through the hospital. My hands shook, but I forced them still. Can you get me this data? Lena's eyes were apologetic. Not directly. I just need proof, I said. Screenshots, something. She looked around again, then reached into her drawer and pulled out a small flash drive. Don't use this on a hospital computer, she whispered. Take pictures with your phone, or load it at home. I'm not supposed to do this. My throat tightened. Lena, I'm doing it because I've watched men in suits destroy good women in scrubs, she said, voice low and fierce. And because if this comes out later and I did nothing, I'll hate myself. She slid the flash drive toward me. It felt heavy, like a stone. Be careful, she added. They'll come for you if they smell what you're holding. I tucked it into my pocket like a secret heartbeat. On my way out of billing, I passed the communication suite. The hallway there always felt different. Carpeted, softer, like the building wanted to hush the lies. The door was ajar, light spilled out. I should have kept walking. But I heard laughter, Bree's laugh, bright, high, victorious, and Marcus's voice beneath it, low and warm in a way I hadn't heard in months. I moved closer, silent. The carpet helped. Through the crack, I saw them. Marcus stood near the conference table, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, his tie loosened. Bree perched on the edge of the table like she belonged there, one leg swinging. She held his phone, scrolling, then looked up at him with that satisfied smile. She's not going to fight you, Bree said. You've got her trained, Marcus chuckled. Nikki's practical. She'll want to avoid embarrassment. Bree leaned closer. And if she doesn't? Marcus's face shifted, hardening. Then we make her the story. Stress, overworked, mental health break. The board doesn't want drama. Bree's smile widened. So I'm the solution. Marcus stepped in, placed a hand on her waist, and kissed her, slow, unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. My lungs forgot how to work. The moment didn't feel like a movie scene. It felt like standing in a room where a patient's monitor goes flat, and everyone pretends it's fine because the family is watching. I backed away, careful, silent, my whole body turning into ice. In the elevator, the executive keycard reader blinked red at my badge. I wasn't allowed up there. I never needed to be. Marcus had built a kingdom with locked doors, and I'd been living in it thinking love counted as access. When I got to my car, my hands shook so badly I dropped my keys. Shay called as soon as I started driving. Talk to me. I told her everything. Billing, the flash drive, the kiss. There was a long silence on the line. Then Shay's voice turned steel. Okay, she said. We don't confront. We build a case. We find a lawyer who eats men like Marcus for breakfast. A divorce lawyer? I asked, voice raw. A divorce lawyer, and maybe a criminal one, Shay replied. Because if he's using hospital funds, that's not just a cheating husband. That's a cheater with a crime habit. I gripped the steering wheel. The city lights blurred through my tears. What if he gets away with it? I whispered. Shay's answer was quiet, certain. He won't. Not if we do this right. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table again, flash drive beside my laptop, the manila envelope open like a wound. I downloaded files, saved screenshots, made backups on a cloud drive Marcus didn't know existed. Every document made my anger sharper, cleaner, less emotional, more surgical. Around 3:12 a.m., a file title caught my eye. Special Project, Larkspur. I clicked. A spreadsheet opened, full of numbers and codes. At first, it looked like accounting noise. Then I saw a column labeled Media Event, Private. And beneath it, dates, locations, hotel names. One of them was from last month, the Marrow Hotel, Suite 1407. My chest tightened. The Marrow Hotel was where Marcus said he'd been for a regional board retreat. I scrolled further. In the notes column, one line stood out. Bry, wardrobe reimbursement approved. Wardrobe reimbursement. My husband had used hospital money to buy her clothes. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. I'm sorry if I've seemed distant. I'm under pressure. Can we reset? Reset. Like the past year was a software glitch. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I opened my contacts and searched for the number Shay had texted me earlier. Yvette Coleman, attorney. The name sat on the screen like a door. I pressed call. A woman answered on the second ring, voice low, awake, unimpressed. This is Yvette. My name is Nikki Lawson, I said, forcing my voice steady. I think my husband is cheating, and I think he's been hiding money. He's also the CEO of my hospital. There was a pause. Then Yvette's tone sharpened with interest. Okay, she said. Tell me everything. Start with what you have in your hands. So I did. I told her about the transition plan, the shell company, the billing codes, the conversation I'd overheard. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You have a husband cheated with his assistant and tried to weaponize your workplace to silence you, and you may have evidence of fraud. That's not a normal divorce. That's a takedown. My pulse thudded. Can you help me? I can, she said. But you're going to do exactly what I say. I will. Good. First rule, no direct communication with him. No emotional texts. No calls. Nothing. Second rule, we secure your finances. Third rule, we preserve evidence in a way that holds up. And fourth, her voice dropped, we anticipate his next move, because men like your husband don't lose quietly. They punish. I swallowed. What do I do tomorrow? Tomorrow, Yvette said, you act normal. You go to work. You don't let that man see your fear, and you bring me those files. We'll meet in person, noon. Noon, I repeated. Sleep if you can, she added, not unkindly. And Nikki? Change your passwords. All of them. He's already in control of the story. Don't let him control your access. After the call, I sat in the dark kitchen and listened to the refrigerator hum. The house felt like a shell, like a place someone had left without moving their furniture. Upstairs, Marcus slept in our bed, breathing slow and even, like a man who believed he'd written the ending already. He didn't know that I'd just hired someone who specialized in ripping endings apart. The next day, I went to work with my face composed and my insides screaming. Marcus wasn't there. He was in meetings, according to his assistant's assistant. Bree was, though. She floated through the lobby with a folder clutched to her chest, smiling at staff like she owned their paychecks. When she saw me, she paused. "Morning, Nikki," she said. "How are you feeling?" Feeling, that word again. "I'm fine," I replied, and kept walking. She fell into step beside me, heels clicking. "Marcus has been worried about you," she said softly. "He hates conflict. He wants everyone to be okay." I stopped and turned to her. The hallway around us was empty, just the hum of vents and distant beeps. "Does he?" I asked. Bree smiled, slow. "He's a good man." The lie sat in the air like formaldehyde. I leaned in slightly, keeping my voice calm. "Tell your good man not to use my workplace to manage me." Bree's eyes flashed. Anger, then control. "Of course," she said, voice sweet as poison. "I'll pass that along." She walked away, posture perfect, like she'd never been rattled, but her hand tightened around her folder. And I knew then she was scared. Not of me, of what I might prove. At noon, I drove to Yvette's office downtown. The building was old brick with modern glass doors, the kind of place that looked like power without advertising it. Yvette greeted me in a sharp suit and sharper gaze. She didn't waste time on sympathy. She slid a legal pad toward me. "Timeline," she said. "From when you first noticed changes." I gave it to her. Dates, events, the fundraiser where Bree appeared, the HR check-in, the late nights, the town hall, the envelope. Yvette listened, nodding, then opened a file folder of her own. "We're going to file," she said, "but we're also going to prepare for discovery. If he's moved money, we'll find it. If he's hidden assets, we'll find them. And if he's using hospital funds, we'll leverage that pressure. CEOs hate daylight." "What about the hospital?" I asked. Yvette's eyes narrowed. "That's delicate. We don't want you accused of stealing data, so we handle it carefully. Your billing contact, Lena, she didn't give you anything classified about patients?" "No," I said quickly. "Just expense approvals and vendor payments." "Good," Yvette said. "We'll keep it strictly financial. No HIPAA mess. We stay clean. We let him be dirty." I swallowed. "He's planning to push me out." Yvette nodded, unsurprised. "Then we get ahead of it. We document retaliation. If he tries to harm your career, it strengthens your case." She leaned forward. "Nikki, I'm going to be blunt. Your husband thinks he can control you because he's controlled everyone around him. He's used fear and image to keep people quiet. But divorce courts don't care about his speeches. They care about numbers, records, patterns." She tapped my flash drive. "And you, baby, you've got patterns." I exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping. "I didn't want this." "No one wants betrayal," she said. "But here's the thing. You don't have to want it to survive it. You just have to be willing to do what it takes." I left her office feeling like my spine had been reinforced with steel. Back at the hospital, a meeting request appeared in my inbox. Mandatory wellness check-in. HR, 3 p.m. My heart dropped. Shay had been right. He was moving. I forwarded the email to Yvette immediately. Her response came back within a minute. "Attend, say little, record if legal. I'll handle the rest." At 3:00, I walked into the HR conference room. Two people sat inside. The HR director and Bry. Not Marcus. Not even his chief of staff. Bree. Her presence made the room feel like a trap snapping shut. "Nikki," the HR director said, Smile too bright. We just wanted to check in and make sure you're supported. Bree crossed her legs, tablet on her lap. We're a family here, she added, voice smooth. Family, again. My hands stayed folded in my lap. I'm supported, I said. The HR director nodded. We've noticed you've been working a lot of hours. We're concerned about burnout. I'm an ICU nurse, I replied calmly. Burnout is our weather. Bree's smile twitched. And with everything going on at home, I lifted my gaze to her. What exactly is going on at home, Brielle? The HR director cleared her throat. We don't need details. We just want to offer resources. Resources. Transition. Support. Scripts. I leaned back slightly, letting my voice turn colder. If this is about my performance, I'd like specifics. Documented. The HR director blinked. Oh, it's not. Then I'm done, I said, standing. If you have concerns, email them to me in writing. Bree's eyes narrowed. The HR director stammered something about just wanting to help, but I walked out. In the hallway, my legs trembled. Not fear, adrenaline. The sensation of stepping away from a cliff and realizing you'd been inches from falling for months. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Why are you making things hard? We can do this quietly. Quietly. I stared at the message, then deleted it. At 5 o'clock, Shay met me in the parking garage. Her car idled beside mine, headlights glaring in the dim concrete space. She leaned out her window. Get in, she said. I climbed into her passenger seat, the air smelling like peppermint gum and determination. You look like you saw a ghost, she said. I saw Bree in HR, I replied. Shay's mouth curled. Of course you did. She's not just the assistant. She's the handler. I nodded. Marcus texted me. He wants quiet. Shay laughed, short and harsh. Quiet is what men ask for when they know they're wrong, and they think you'll be polite. She reached into her console and pulled out a small digital recorder. This is for you. If anyone corners you again, you turn it on. Let them hang themselves with their own words. I took it, fingers closing around the plastic like a lifeline. As I climbed into my own car, I glanced up at the hospital's lit windows. Somewhere inside, Marcus was still playing CEO, still smiling for someone, still writing scripts. But now I had my own script, and it didn't include his forgiveness. That evening, as I pulled into my driveway, I saw a car already parked there, Marcus's. My stomach tightened. He was home early. When I walked in, he was in the living room, sitting with his elbows on his knees, like a man practicing regret. His tie was off. His sleeves were rolled. He looked almost human. Nikki, he said softly, we need to talk. Behind him, on the coffee table, sat a folder I recognized. The same kind communications used. The same kind he'd left in the ICU. He was holding paperwork. And in that moment, I understood something with a cold clarity that made my skin prickle. He wasn't here to apologize. He was here to finish the transition plan. He stood when I didn't move fast enough, and the room felt smaller, like the walls had leaned in to listen. I've been patient, he said, voice controlled. But you're forcing my hand. I glanced at the folder without touching it. What is that? A proposal, he answered. A separation agreement. Simple. Clean. You keep appearances, I keep stability. We don't drag the hospital into it. There it was. The threat wrapped in calm. I let my gaze lift to his. And if I don't sign? His smile was thin as a scalpel. Then you take a leave. The board will insist. And people will talk. In my pocket, the flash drive pressed against my thigh like a heartbeat. Marcus stood in the middle of our living room, like a man rehearsing for a camera that wasn't there. The folder on the coffee table looked harmless. Cream paper, polite headings. But it radiated intent. A proposal, he said, voice controlled. A separation agreement. Clean, quiet. We keep the hospital out of it. His favorite word was quiet. Quiet meant he could keep the stable CEO image while I absorbed the damage in private. I didn't sit. I kept my keys in my hand, the metal biting my palm. And if I don't sign? I asked. Marcus's smile thinned. Then you take a leave. The board will insist. And people will talk. Not a shout, a measured threat. The kind that doesn't bruise skin, just reputation. The flash drive in my pocket pressed against my thigh like a heartbeat. In my purse, Shay's little recorder was already on. I'd switched it on the moment I walked through the door. Not because I wanted drama, but because my cheating husband had already turned our marriage into a managed narrative. I'm not signing tonight, I said. Nikki, don't be stubborn. Stubborn? I repeated, almost calm. You drafted this without me. You've been planning this without me. His eyes flicked down, just for a second, toward my purse, like he could feel the recording. Then he reset his face, gentle as a physician delivering bad news. You're exhausted, he said. You're stressed. You're imagining enemies. There it was, the soft diagnosis, the quiet attempt to label my clarity as illness. I nodded slowly, as if he'd convinced me. Then your lawyer can send it to my lawyer. Marcus's jaw tightened. You already have a lawyer? Yes, I said. Yvette Coleman. The name changed the temperature. Marcus knew Yvette's reputation. She didn't negotiate endings to protect a man's comfort. For a moment, something real flickered in his eyes. Panic, quick and ugly. Then the CEO mask snapped back in place. You're making this hard, he said. You made it hard when you lied, I replied. He picked up the folder, slid it toward me like bait. Just read it. I'll read it when my lawyer receives it, I said. His voice sharpened at the edges. Think about what's best. What's best for who? I asked. Marcus paused at the doorway, back to me. For everyone. He left. The door clicked. The house settled into that fake calm married people use as wallpaper. Only then did I open the folder. The first page was titled Mutual Separation Agreement. The language was clean, reasonable, almost kind. It said we'd grown apart. It offered me a lump sum and promised transitional career support, like my life was a department being phased out. I took photos of every page and sent them to Yvette. Then I sat on the edge of the guest bed and listened to the silence, letting it confess. At 6:11 a.m., a calendar invite hit my phone. From Brielle Gaines. Subject, Wellness Support Meeting. Mandatory. Location, Executive Conference Room A. Time, 8:30 a.m. I didn't respond. I just texted Shay. They pulled me into executive conference with Bry. 8:30. Shay replied. Record, don't react. I'm nearby. By 8:28, I was walking into the glass-walled conference room that smelled like coffee and money. Bree sat at the table with HR and Calvin Rhodes, the board chair. Marcus wasn't there, of course. He'd put Bree in the room like a shield. Ms. Lawson, Calvin said, standing. Thank you for coming. I sat without smiling. I didn't have a choice. Calvin's eyes stayed calm, almost bored. We're concerned about stability. There have been reports of stress, conflict. Bree tilted her head, sympathy perfected. We care about you. We've noticed you've been tense. Tense, I repeated. Interesting. The HR director jumped in fast. This isn't disciplinary. It's support. Mandatory support, I said quietly. With my husband's assistant present. Calvin folded his hands. We'd like to offer a paid leave of absence. There it was, the board-approved exile. Make me disappear without saying the word. And if I decline? I asked. Bree's voice slid in smooth. Then we may need to reevaluate your role. For patient safety. Patient safety, the holy phrase they used like a shield. I leaned forward slightly, calm as a nurse giving discharge instructions. Are you offering this because my husband is having an affair with his assistant? Silence dropped hard. The HR director's face froze. Calvin's eyebrows lifted a fraction. Bree's smile stayed, but her eyes sharpened. I don't know what you mean, Bry said. I nodded. You do. Calvin cleared his throat. This isn't the forum for... It is if the hospital is being used to pressure me, I said. If you want to discuss my personal life as a risk to the institution, then be honest about what the risk actually is. Calvin studied me. Do you have evidence of misconduct at work? I had money trails, overheard words, patterns, enough to destroy reputations if handled cleanly. But Yvette's warning echoed, stay clean. Don't hand them a reason to call you a thief. So I said, carefully, I have concerns about retaliation and misuse of hospital resources. Bree's posture tightened. Calvin's gaze sharpened. That is a serious allegation. So is threatening my job under the name of wellness, I replied. Calvin held the stare, then nodded once. Decision made. We will pause this discussion. You remain in your role for now, but professionalism will be expected. You'll get it, I said, and I walked out. In the stairwell, my hands shook, but my voice had stayed steady. Calm is armor. At noon, I sat in Yvette Coleman's office downtown and played her the recording. She listened without blinking, pen tapping once when Calvin said stability, twice when Bree said patient safety. When it ended, Yvette looked up. They threatened you on record, she said. That helps us. I stared at her. Helps? In court, it's retaliation. In negotiations, it's leverage, she said. Your husband is using institutional power to control a divorce story. Judges hate that. I slid the flash drive across her desk. And this is the money. Yvette didn't plug it into her computer. She placed it in an evidence envelope, sealed it, wrote the date and time like she was labeling a specimen. We file today, she said, and we notify compliance, through me, about vendor payments that don't match deliverables. That forces a paper trail. My stomach tightened. Won't that paint a target on me? It already has, Yvette said. We're just making it visible. By late afternoon, the hospital felt tense in a way I usually only felt right before a patient crashed. Smiles were too bright. Conversations died when I walked up. The rumor machine had started. Soft, fast, hungry. At 5:12 p.m., an email hit leadership. From Office of Compliance. Subject, temporary hold. Vendor payments under review. Vendor holds. Gaines Media Consulting. Larkspur Strategies. The hospital had put its own hand on the thread, and when you tug a thread in a system built on image, it doesn't just unravel one sweater, it exposes what's underneath. At 7 o'clock, I walked into the parking garage and found Marcus waiting near my car. No suit, no podium voice, just shirt sleeves and dark eyes. What did you do? He asked low. I hired counsel, I said. His jaw clenched. You went to compliance. I went to my lawyer, I corrected. She went where she needed to. Marcus took a step closer. You're going to destroy everything I built. You destroyed what we built, I said. I'm just not covering for you anymore. His eyes flashed. This is because of Bry? I held his stare. You're asking me that like you don't know. For a second, the CEO vanished, and I saw a man terrified of consequences. Then he swallowed it and reached for control again. You don't understand, he said. She's a choice, I interrupted. Your choice. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then turned the screen away from me instinctively. That instinct was louder than any confession. I'm done talking, I said. From now on, you talk to Yvette. He said my name like it was a warning. Nikki. I walked past him without running. Concrete echoed. Security cameras watched from corners. I didn't give him a single shaky moment he could package as proof I was unstable. Inside my car, I breathed slowly and checked my phone. A text from Lena. They're searching billing logs. Be careful. Someone asked about my access. Then an unknown number. We need to talk. You're hurting Marcus. Stop. Another message followed. You think you're so smart, you don't know what you're doing. Even through text, I could hear Bree's voice, sweet poison turning sharp when it didn't work. I forwarded everything to Yvette, then blocked the number. 2 days later, Marcus was served with divorce papers at the hospital. Shay got the gossip before I did. Right in his office, she said, delighted. He looked like someone unplugged him. Compliance escalated the audit. Vendor contracts were requested. Deliverables demanded. Staff whispered about a financial review the way they whisper about a virus, quietly, with fear. Then the next twist arrived like a sudden beep on a monitor. Shay called at 2:17 a.m., breathless. "Bree's telling people she's pregnant." The words iced my throat. "What?" "She's claiming Marcus is the father," Shay said. "She wants it handled before it leaks. And listen, people are saying the timeline is weird. Secret pregnancy timeline weird." My mind jumped to hotel dates, conference weeks, the nights Marcus had claimed he was off-site when I'd been at events with him. Lies don't always check calendars. Bodies do. "What do we do?" I whispered. Shay's voice steadied. "We do nothing. You and Yvette chase the money and the retaliation. The pregnancy will chase them." The hospital's board called an emergency executive session the next day. I didn't get invited, but I felt the ripple. The building hummed with it. Administrators walked faster. PR staff looked pale. The communications suite door stayed closed. At 2:30 p.m., I received a calendar invite I hadn't requested. Subject: Board Inquiry. Attendance requested. Location: Executive Conference Room A. Time: 4 p.m. This wasn't about wellness now. This was about containment. At 3:58, I walked into the conference room and saw the full cast of Marcus's collapse. Calvin sat at the head. 2 other board members flanked him. The compliance officer sat with a binder thick enough to bruise. Marcus sat beside his attorney, posture rigid, face paler than usual. And Bri sat 2 chairs away, hands folded over her stomach like she was protecting a jewel. Calvin gestured to a chair. "Ms. Lawson." I sat, eyes forward. I didn't look at Marcus. I didn't look at Bri. I wasn't here to perform pain. Calvin opened the binder. "This is a preliminary inquiry. Vendor payments have been flagged. Approvals, conflicts of interest." The compliance officer slid a packet across the table. "Payments to Gaines Media Consulting and Larkspur Strategies were approved at CEO level," she said. "We are investigating ownership and deliverables." Marcus's attorney started. "This is—" Calvin cut him off. "Save it!" Calvin turned to Marcus. "Dr. Lawson, do you have a relationship with Ms. Gaines outside of work?" Silence. Bri's breathing quickened. Marcus's attorney leaned in, whispering, but Marcus lifted a hand to stop him. His voice came out low and flat. "Yes." The room exhaled like it had been waiting for the word. Calvin nodded once, eyes cold. "And we have reason to believe hospital funds were used in connection with this relationship." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Those payments were legitimate media consulting." "Then produce contracts and deliverables within 48 hours, the compliance officer said, expression blank. Calvin shifted his gaze to Bri. "Ms. Gaines, are you pregnant?" Bri's chin lifted. "Yes." "And you state the father is Dr. Lawson." "Yes," she repeated, softer now. Marcus stared straight ahead. His knuckles were white. Calvin's tone stayed even. "Given the institutional risk, we will require independent confirmation before any benefits, settlements, or support considerations are discussed." Bri's head snapped up. "Excuse me?" "This is risk management," Calvin said. "Not a moral judgment." Marcus finally turned, voice sharp. "Calvin, that's not necessary." Calvin met his gaze. "It is now." Something flickered through Bri's face. Fear, fast and ugly, slipping through the makeup. The compliance officer flipped a page. "Additionally, conception timeline overlaps with dates Dr. Lawson was documented off-site at a conference." Marcus's attorney protested. "Speculation." "Correlation," Calvin corrected. "That's what audits do." I sat very still, the coldest kind of calm. A woman watching surgeons argue while the patient lies open on the table. Calvin addressed the room. "Effective immediately, Dr. Lawson will be placed on administrative leave pending investigation." Marcus's face tightened. "You can't?" "We can," Calvin said. "And we are." Bri inhaled sharply, like the air had thinned. Calvin looked at me. "Ms. Lawson, due to the personal connection, You will be temporarily reassigned to a non-supervisory capacity while we review conflicts. Pay and benefits remain unchanged. It was containment, not exile. A way to keep the institution clean while it decided who to cut. I nodded once. Understood. The meeting ended in clipped instructions and legal language. People gathered papers like they were gathering weapons. As I stood to leave, Bree's voice followed me, soft but venomous. You did this! I didn't turn around. No, I said quietly. You did. In the hallway, the fluorescent lights hummed. Monitors beeped somewhere down the corridor. A cart rolled by. Life kept moving like it always does, even when your marriage is dying in conference rooms. Marcus had wanted quiet. Instead, he'd given me a soundtrack. Recorded threats, frozen vendor payments, a compliance audit, and a board that finally cared more about money than image. I walked away with my badge on my chest and my head high, feeling one thing with absolute certainty. He tried to erase me. Now he was being audited by the same institution he used as a weapon. And the truth, cold, documented, relentless, was only getting started. And every step forward, I felt my pulse steady, not shaking anymore. The hospital didn't feel like a kingdom anymore. It felt like a machine that had finally noticed a loose bolt and decided to shake itself until the truth fell out. Marcus's face was everywhere and nowhere at once. The lobby screen stopped playing his smiling montage. His name disappeared from the message from the CEO email footer. I was reassigned to a quieter role, still paid, still employed, but kept away from the microphones and the glass conference rooms. Containment. A polite quarantine. I didn't fight it. I didn't need my title to tell me who I was. I needed time to finish what had started in a manila envelope. Yvette moved like a surgeon. She filed motions, requested disclosures, and sent formal letters that forced Marcus to answer with documents instead of charm. Every time he tried to call me, she sent the call back like a bounced check. Let him talk to the paper, she said. Paper doesn't get gaslit. And I had enough paper to bury his story under facts today. Compliance kept pulling threads. Lena texted me in fragments, short, careful messages that read like hospital notes. They found Larkspur's real owner. Board is furious. PR is panicking. Shay, meanwhile, treated the whole collapse like weather she'd predicted. She'd show up at my house with food and a look that said, "You're not dying today." 2 weeks after the board meeting, the paternity test happened. Not because Bree wanted it, because the board demanded proof before anything else tied the hospital to her story. Risk management doesn't care about romance. The result came in on a Thursday morning. Not his. 3 words that landed like a gavel in my chest. Hard, final, clean. Marcus wasn't the father. The hospital CEO affair scandal he'd built his new life around wasn't even biologically his. The family story he'd tried to sell was a product with a false label. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just felt the strange, cold relief of a monitor stabilizing after a long night of alarms. Yvette called me. "This changes his leverage," she said. "No baby, no new family excuse, just a cheating husband and a pile of financial fraud in marriage." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we finish," she replied. The board finished too. Calvin Rhodes issued a statement to senior leadership. Dr. Lawson's employment was terminated pending further findings. The hospital's legal team reported the vendor scheme to outside auditors. Marcus's career didn't end with a bang. It ended with paperwork and silence. Exactly the kind of quiet he'd always wanted for me. Bree vanished from the hospital within 48 hours. Her ID badge was deactivated. Her email bounced. Her social media went dark, except for one late-night post that lasted 9 minutes before she deleted it. A blurry photo of a baby blanket and a caption about betrayal. I didn't respond. I blocked her. I refused to become a supporting character in her spiral. My final divorce hearing took place in a courthouse that smelled like old wood and fresh fear. I wore a charcoal suit and flat shoes. Not because I wanted to look powerful, but because I wanted to feel steady. Shay sat behind me like a wall. Yvette sat beside me like a blade. Marcus walked in with his attorney and a face that looked thinner than I remembered, as if his own lies had been eating him from the inside. When his eyes found mine, he tried to hold them, the way he used to during donor photos, hoping the camera would soften him. I looked through him. In court, charm is just noise. Yvette laid it out. Vendor payments routed through shells, reimbursements tied to brie, misuse of hospital resources, attempts to retaliate through wellness meetings, and the separation agreement drafted to pressure me into silence. She introduced the recordings. She introduced the bank statements. She introduced the timeline. Burner phone evidence wasn't even necessary. Marcus's own approvals were enough. The judge listened without drama. When she finally spoke, her voice was as flat as a chart note. "Mr. Lawson," she said, "you used marital funds to support an extramarital relationship and attempted to weaponize your professional position against your spouse. That will be reflected in this judgment." No yelling, no movie moment, just consequences. The settlement didn't feel like revenge. It felt like repair. The house remained mine. The debts tied to his secret spending became his. Spousal support was ordered for a set term, and my legal fees were covered. The judge made it clear, if he missed payments or hid assets again, contempt would follow. Marcus's attorney protested once. The judge shut him down with a look. When it was over, the clerk stamped the final papers. The sound was small, but it cracked something open in my ribs. Freedom isn't fireworks. Sometimes it's the quiet click of a lock that finally turns. Outside the courthouse, Marcus stood near the steps, alone. For the first time in months, there was no audience, no board, no cameras. Just him and the life he'd burned down. He cleared his throat. "Nikki?" I paused but didn't step closer. "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough. "I ruined everything. I don't even—" His words stumbled. "I don't even know who I was." I let the silence stretch until he had to sit in it. "You knew who you were," I said quietly. "You just didn't think I'd survive it." His eyes filled. "I thought I could fix it." "You thought you could manage it," I corrected. "Like PR." He flinched. "What do you want from me?" The question felt almost childish, like a man still searching for the right transaction. "I want you to stop reaching for me like I'm a remedy," I said. "I'm not. I'm the person you chose to betray." He swallowed hard. "Can we ever—" "No," I said, and it wasn't cruel. It was factual. "Go heal somewhere else." I walked away before he could turn my boundary into another negotiation. That night, Shay threw me a tiny celebration at my house. My house. Fully mine. No longer haunted by his cologne or his speeches. She brought takeout and sparkling cider and a cake that said, "To peace." We ate at my kitchen island and laughed the way you laugh after surviving something that tried to hollow you out. "You okay?" she asked when the dishes were done. I looked around the quiet rooms, the new calm. "I'm more than okay," I said. "I'm awake." In the months that followed, the hospital rebuilt its image without Marcus. New leadership, new policies, a public audit. I returned to nursing leadership under a different administration that treated my role as essential, not inconvenient. And I started something that mattered, a transparent staff support fund that couldn't be rated for someone's romance, and a community clinic partnership that put money back where it belonged. The best revenge wasn't watching Marcus fall. It was watching myself rise without him. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who swore they loved you, remember this. A cheating husband can steal your comfort, but he doesn't get to steal your future unless you hand it over. Protect your peace. Document your truth. And never let anyone diagnose your instincts. And if this story hit you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Like the video to help the channel grow. And drop a comment. What was the moment you knew the truth couldn't stay hidden? Tap the end screen to keep listening.